Good morning. Welcome to the First Religious Society, Unitarian Universalist in Newburyport, Massachusetts. My name is Julie Parker Amory, and I am the Director of Faith Formation and Spiritual Exploration of this beloved congregation. We are living in challenging times. Forces press upon us that suggest we best live in fear, separation, and blame. Instead, we choose to come together as a church community, committed to love, peace, and justice. Our core values are authentic connection, courageous action, love, spirituality, and wonder. Our mission and our invitation to all is to come as you are, journey together in love, act with courage, transform our world. If you are visiting today or joining us for the first time, we are especially glad that you're with us this morning. As you join us online, there are links you can click to see today's order of service. They will be shared in the chat box now. As there are several people leading the service this morning, we encourage you to use speaker view so that you can hear and see everything. Many of you have received your campaign brochure and pledge card, so please take the opportunity later in the service to fill it out and send it back to the church. You can even stop by the front of the church today between noon and 1 p.m. to drop it off with Reverend Rebecca and campaign co-chairs Mackenzie Rayfeld and Jill Porter. A digital version of the campaign brochure is available in the video description and in the chat now for you to see. Our service this morning is an expression of the work of our congregation's anti-racism initiative core team. The initiative began with an invitation from Reverend Rebecca last spring after the murder of George Floyd by a white police officer of the Minneapolis Police Department. She invited all concerned members and friends to a conversation on Zoom. Over 60 people attended. Out of that conversation, the core team was formed to begin the complex work of discerning not only how we as a congregation would respond to systemic racism and white on black violence, but how we might become an intentionally anti-racist congregation. You will hear more about this work in the service and will be invited to find a place in it for yourself. Every Sunday, we say that it is no small thing that we have gathered. This morning, it is a particularly big thing that we have gathered, so let us give ourselves to it. I welcome one and all to our church and our worship service.
Indeed, it is a particularly big thing that we have gathered today, as it is every Sunday, and yet this Sunday marks the 1-year anniversary when the building was closed and we began offering services virtually and online. And what a year it has been. Our call to worship this morning is a calling in of the ancestors, adapted from the writings of Christina Schuh and Tara Little. We are asking and inviting everyone to participate. You will remain muted and will be prompting us throughout this. Let us call forth the ancestors to this important work and worship this morning. Thus, we begin this ceremony with paying tribute and expressing gratitude to our ancestors. We call our parents, their parents, and grandparents, and their forebears from across time and place to be here with us. Say the names of those of your ancestors now. We call on the people of the First Religious Society, Unitarian Universalist, who grew and dreamed this church and this beloved community into being. Say their names. We call on all inhabiting this North Shore region to honor the beauty of our earth, our Merrimack River, the Great Marsh, our barrier beaches, the fields and meadows inhabited by the Abenaki, the Pennacook, and the Pawtucket. We call upon our activist ancestors, those who struggled for justice, freedom, and liberation of all people, who challenge us today to honor the fullness of each and every human being. We especially lift up those who are battling the racism and oppression right here today. They ask us to join together in the ongoing struggle to make our community whole. May our ancestors guide us on our way. May they bless this space and time and the work we are about to do. Please, everyone, join in speaking the words, "Ancestors, be with us." You are faithfully called to worship. And let's join together now in saying our chalice lighting words. The words are shared on the screen. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together. Each week, we also light 2 candles of peace, representing 2 places on earth we lift up and remember as a sacred encounter with our world. There are untold numbers of places on earth that need peace. These 2 we especially hold close in this service and through the week. After each candle is lit, we will speak the words for peace in English, Arabic, and Hebrew: peace, salam, shalom. And this morning, I'll read all the candles and then light them at the same time. Our first candle this morning is lit for the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute of Boston, which begins the online version of its annual Mother's Day Walk for Peace in April. Louis D. Brown was a 15-year-old high school sophomore looking forward to college when he was caught in a fatal crossfire shootout near his home in Dorchester in 1993. With a commitment to making his community a more peaceful and just place, Louis worked to challenge the negative stereotypes about youth in his neighborhood. May his legacy help bring more peace and justice to all, and may continuing laws be passed that reduce gun violence and all of its tragedies. Peace, salam, shalom. Our second candle this morning is lit for grocery stores, warehouses, and food processing plants, and the people who work in them, who have risked their lives so we could stay well-fed and fully stocked during the deadliest pandemic in a century. Many of these workers are immigrants and people of color. They are performing jobs critical to the functioning of our society, but these jobs have often put them at high risk of contracting the virus. We pray for the safety of these workers, for the health of them and their family, and for the recognition of all that they have done and continue to do. Peace, salam, shalom. And this morning, as we have done over the last year, we also light a candle of hope and remembrance in recognition of the COVID-19 pandemic, all those people who are struggling for economic security, all those who are fighting for their lives and their health, all those who have lost their lives and their loved ones. We will light this candle each time we worship for as long as we live into this worldwide reality. And let's join together now in singing our opening hymn, Draw the Circle Wide.
Draw the circle wide.
Beautiful choir. Let's join together in saying our affirmation of faith and followed by singing the doxology. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God.
From all that dwell below the skies, let faith and hope with love all arise. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land by every tongue.
And now we will hear from a few of our fellow FRSers and learn what our beloved church means to them.
FRS UU is a place where I explore deepening my commitment and relationship with community. And it's a place where I bring my spirituality and I meet my social activism there. And I just love that part. It's of a growing family in my heart and in my life. And it means the world to me.
What does the FRS mean to me? History, democracy, justice, and community.
Hi, my name is Sue Creed, and I am a lifelong member of the First Religious Society in Newburyport. Many of you know me from singing in the choir, others from other committees that I have served on. It takes a lot to support the church. We have a minister, we have staff, we have programming, and none of that can happen without your support. We have a huge building. It needs maintenance. It can't be maintained without your support. If you like what you hear and see on Sunday morning and it is meaningful to you to have lifelong friendships and connections that you've made here, please give and give generously. We can't do it without you. Thank you.
What does the FRS mean to me? It means learning from some wise and wonderful ministers, Harold, Susan, Reverend Rebecca. It means working with some just incredible colleagues on staff who have just touched my life in so many ways. It means sharing joys and sorrows and sorrows with generations of children, watching those children grow into teenagers and traveling with them to places like the Mexican border and the Pine Ridge Reservation as we learn about justice issues. It means staying connected as they grow into their young adulthood, and they give me so much hope for our future. It means hearing thousands of stories, making thousands of connections through adult faith formation programs, through events like circle dinners, through pastoral care, through just going about the business of our church. These connections and these stories have helped shape who I am today. Asking me what the FRS means to me is sort of like asking what beauty means or humor. I can't quite articulate it, but I know that my life would have a whole lot less soul without it. It is a blessing to be here, and it is such an honor to be among those religious professionals who have served in this living tradition for over 300 years.
Thank you, everyone. I both laugh and cry and smile in delight. So once again, I'm trying to hold it all together. It's so good to be together. This is the time in our service each week when we lift up the joys and the sorrows of our gathered community. I invite you to share your joys and sorrows in the chat. I'll share the few we have in advance, and then I'll read those that have been listed in the chat. And in lieu of candles this morning, I'll be using stones in water. Again, as I noted earlier, this is a stone of faith, of gratitude, of joy and sorrows for this beloved community and every single day we've gone through together for the past year. And we have a stone of joy this morning. Michael Fosberg shares that he had a long postponed surgery on Monday to cure and eliminate his sciatica. He is now happily at the Brigham Health and Rehab Center here in Newburyport. And we send you, Michael, all kinds of good wishes and love. This is a stone of joy and love and support and community for Lori Evans Daly and Dick Daly, as Lori has made the decision and moved to Atria to be with her beloved husband. We have a new address we'll share on Monday, and we hold them both in our hearts and love. Now, let's see. We have a stone of joy from Sandra Thaxter for sharing some of her sorrows and concerns with me this past week. And what an honor it is to be a part of all of your lives. Thank you, Sandra. A joy from Pat Skibby that both she and Michael have gotten both of their shots. So for Pat and Michael, and for all those in our community and the larger community who are getting their vaccines. So for all of us who are feeling shy or quiet or in need of an extra hour of sleep, we are lifting up this final stone of joy and sorrow for everything that, though unspoken, is held in just as much love and care. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mara Flynn, our Director of Children's Ministry, who has a very special joy and new initiative to share with us today.
Hi, I'm unmuted now. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Reverend Rebecca. Thank you, all of you. It's so wonderful to be here with all of you today. So I have an exciting announcement. We will be hosting our own little free diverse library right outside of Parish Hall at our beloved sanctuary. Right on Pleasant Street. So you may have seen the Little Free Diverse Library that is hosted by Theater in the Open on their campus. There it is. Teddy Speck built that beautiful library to look like the gatehouse. He was inspired by Sarah Kamya of Arlington, Massachusetts. She started her own Little Free Diverse Library last summer, after noticing that the little free libraries near her home offered mostly stories about white characters written by white authors. And here's a picture of Sarah. So her plan was to collect donations from her Instagram followers and use those donations to buy diverse books and then disperse them throughout Arlington's Little Free Libraries. And now it's turned into a movement with Little Free diverse libraries in all 50 states. And there she is, flooded with book donations. She got so many books that she started sending them to other people's Little Free diverse libraries. So I have a really beautiful quote that I found from Sarah in one of her interviews, and I'd like to share that with you today. She says, "When I was growing up in Arlington, I rarely saw any Black or brown characters in books. And it was hard for me to not feel represented in literature, especially when I was a big book lover. This at times made me feel alone and unworthy of things that white friends could do. It is my hope that through this project, that if little Black and brown children stumble across one of these Little Free libraries, they will finally be able to see themselves represented and celebrated in literature. I'm also excited for white children to educate themselves and experience different cultures and backgrounds through Black characters. Representation matters. Thanks to some local families and friends, our library structure is already built." And there it is. There's a picture of it. So the next steps will be installing it outside of Parish Hall on the Pleasant Street side, which is such a great location in our community. We'll be collecting book donations, books for all ages. And we are so excited to work on this with all of you and to make our church and our community a more welcoming place for everyone. So we'll keep you posted on our progress, and we will let you know how you can get involved. More to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maura. That's just wonderful and so inspirational and exciting. Won't you join me now in a spirit of prayer and meditation? This morning's prayer is a poem written by Margaret Walker. I've changed the words to reflect my own relationship to these words. Thus, where Ms. Walker wrote "my people," I will say Black people. For Black people everywhere, singing their slave songs repeatedly, their dirges and their ditties and their blues and jubilees, praying their prayers nightly to an unknown God, bending their knees humbly to an unseen power. For Black people lending their strength to the years, to the gone years and the now years and the maybe years, washing, ironing, cooking, scrubbing, sewing, mending, hoeing, plowing, digging, planting, pruning, patching, dragging along, never gaining, never reaping, never knowing, and never understanding. For the cramped, bewildered years they went to school to learn to know the reasons why, and the answers to, and the people who, and the places where, and the days when. In memory of the bitter hours when they discovered they were Black and poor and small and different. Nobody cared, and nobody wondered, and nobody understood. For the boys and girls who grew in spite of these things, to be man and woman, to laugh and dance and sing and play and drink their wine and religion and success, to marry their playmates and bear children, and then die of consumption and anemia and lynching. for Black people blundering and groping and floundering in the dark of churches and schools and clubs and societies, associations and councils and committees and conventions, distressed and disturbed and deceived and devoured by money-hungry, glory-craving leeches, preyed on by facile force of state and fad and novelty, by false prophet and holy believer. For Black people standing, staring, trying to fashion a better way from confusion, from hypocrisy and misunderstanding, trying to fashion a world that will hold all the people, all the faces, all the Adams and Eves and their countless generations. Let a new earth rise. Let another world be born. Let a bloody peace be written in the sky. Let a second generation full of courage issue forth. Let a people loving freedom come to growth. Let a beauty full of healing and a strength of final clenching be the pulsing in our spirits and our blood. Let the martial songs be written. Let the dirges disappear. Amen.
Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for its soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom. Circle round for peace. For all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for its soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom. Circle round for peace. For all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for its soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole.
We will now hear from 3 members of the Anti-Racism Initiative core team, Susan Stone, Eileen Costello, and Sue Fasoli, as they reflect on their personal journeys in anti-racism work.
Hi, my name is Susan Stone. My husband Vern and I have been members at FRS since 2016. I'm also a Buddhist practitioner. I'm grateful to have this opportunity to have thought about and now to share with you my own evolving awareness of racism and my role as a white person of privilege. My first memory of the existence of racism was in elementary school, where I had gone to a liberal alternative school, and we were taught about and discussed human values, in particular race and issues of racism. However, I lived in a predominantly white community of privilege and learned very quickly that in my neighborhood, in my family, in my community, no one spoke about these issues. It was really only in school. And even though racism was glaringly obvious and everywhere, it was very confusing and disturbing to me. When I left home and I moved to Boston, my first job out of school was in Roxbury and Dorchester, and for the next 20 years, at the Head Start schools where I worked, I was a therapist and learned how to work in a community that I was not fully a part of, but it truly felt like a privilege to have been of service. And I felt and continue to feel such love for all of the families that I worked with. Each was unique and precious. However, at the time I was living in Newton, similarly to where I grew up, a white community of privilege, where I was raising my children, and I just expected to be safe, to be healthy, and really took for granted many of my privileges. I had an uncomfortable awareness of my complacence and felt a sort of spiritual paralysis. Something was obviously wrong as I went to work every day and saw the constant trauma firsthand of structural racism. It was not until I joined the UU Church that I found a venue of like-minded people in my community. And I was finally able to start to share my experience and to speak about it without a paralyzing sense of shame. Since I've moved to Newburyport and joined FRS, I've seen my involvement in the anti-racism group as an opportunity to start again and to continue my growth and learning, and hopefully to offer service in this most crucial justice work. I'm part of the Beyond subgroup of the anti-racism group. We have many initiatives. We're also looking into housing and how to become a positive force of change in Newburyport. I also participated in Julie's Seeing White group. This was a powerful emotional experience, which really opened my eyes to how ingrained racism is in our country, and in particular in the history of our country. So in many ways, this is painful work, but it's the pain of true spiritual and personal growth, and really nothing compared to the suffering of others caused by ignorance. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Eileen Costello. As a Puerto Rican, I have long been aware of the prevalence of racism in our country. When I was a young college student, I moved to New England after growing up in Puerto Rico. I struggled with the culture shock typical for someone moving to a place with a different culture and language. I also experienced prejudice in subtle and often unintentional comments that communicated negative biases towards Hispanics. We now call these microaggressions. I've learned that while we're all susceptible to unconscious or implicit bias, we can interrupt these harmful assumptions if we try to see people as people rather than stereotypes. As a white presenting Latinx, I am keenly aware of white privilege and of the many ways that I have benefited from it. You see, although I'm a Puerto Rican woman with European, Indigenous, and African ancestry, my lighter skin has protected me from discrimination and anti-Blackness that many experience based on the color of their skin. Last spring, I participated in the Seeing White program led by Julie Amory. This experience was a turning point in my racial justice journey because I realized how much I didn't know and still needed to learn. I learned about historical events that weren't taught in school, about the myth of meritocracy for many in marginalized groups, and about the frustration that many Black, Indigenous, and people of color feel when they speak about racism, only to have their concerns minimized or dismissed. I have also learned about the pervasiveness of systemic racism and how deeply embedded it is in our institutions, from education to healthcare, housing, and our criminal justice system. Most importantly, I have learned that it is not enough to simply be not racist. We must be anti-racist. It is not enough to simply be aware of racism. We need to take action in order to dismantle systemic racism. That means educating ourselves and getting involved even when we do not have all the answers. It means learning as we go and being willing to make mistakes in the process. Last summer, I joined the FRS Anti-Racism Initiative, a group whose goal is to assist our parish board and members in becoming an anti-racist congregation. I'm part of the Within subgroup, and our focus is to provide FRS members and friends opportunities for self-reflection and education. We're currently in the process of developing a self-assessment and a survey that will help people examine their thoughts and feelings around racism and racial justice. I'm excited and hopeful about the important work that we're doing, and I invite you to join in our efforts. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sue Fasoli, and if we haven't met, I've been a member of FRS since March of 2019. I'd like to share with you what I've written about my recent experiences in anti-racism work at FRS and beyond. After moving to Salem in late 2015, I searched for UU congregation that would provide a welcoming and spiritual community that was comparable to what I had loved and experienced for many years at the First Universalist Society in Franklin, Massachusetts. When I found FRS, I was struck by the energy I felt during Sunday services and was happy to make connections as a new member of the newcomers team and by volunteering with other FRS folks and my husband Lee on Habitat for Humanity Saturdays. While I'd always been deeply disturbed by news of social injustice and racist attacks on persons of color, I had taken little action to be involved or to learn more about the profound institutional impact of racism on persons of color, both currently and historically. Having always lived in a predominantly white community with friends and colleagues of little cultural and ethnic diversity, I didn't feel a strong need to expand my knowledge of what it meant to be an anti-racist or to consider deeply how I, as a white, educated woman, might be viewed by persons of different cultural or racial backgrounds. Honestly, I was uncertain what to do, what actions to take by myself to become more informed and engaged. Events over the past few years, including increased violence toward persons of color by white supremacists and the deaths of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, led to my decision not to be a passive bystander any longer. I attended Black Lives Matter marches pre-COVID and participated in seminars in anti-racism, power, privilege, and positionality at my workplace. Although I've become more sensitive to issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion in our society, these efforts didn't feel like they were enough. I realized that I needed to do some deep work. I joined Julie's Seeing White program last September to further explore the history of racial disparities and to connect with other FRS members who had similar concerns and issues about racism. Julie's Seeing White series provided a valuable look into our white ancestry, our recollections of American history, and battles that men and women of color have faced for centuries. I truly appreciated and looked forward to these times for self-reflection, for honest conversations, and learning as I became more aware of how others might view my own whiteness and position, not as I viewed myself, but from the perspective of different cultural and racial backgrounds. I'm more sensitive to my white privilege now, and I'm committed to exploring new learning opportunities and becoming more involved in anti-racist initiatives at FRS in my work and in my home communities. I joined the Anti-Racist Working Group as a member of the Among subgroup, which is directed toward anti-racist initiatives that may affect the congregation as a whole. I look forward to participating in facilitated training for the Richmond Pledge to End Racism so that I can help to co-lead small group discussions about topics such as confronting bias and personal commitments to ending racism. I want to better understand what it would mean to become an anti-racist congregation, and I look forward to engaging in conversations and educational opportunities that further explore how issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion affect individuals within and beyond our FRS walls. I realize that I have a lot to learn, and I look forward to continuing my journey alongside others within this wonderful community. Thank you for this opportunity for sharing.
Thank you, Susan and Eileen and Sue and others who helped to create this service, Sandra, Tina, Vern, Julie, everyone who participated in today's service, Mara, and all of you who are so deeply committed to this work of anti-racism. When George Floyd was murdered last spring, there was a national and local outpouring against the racist and unjust killing of Black people. In fact, as the minister of this congregation, I often say I want to hear from you all more. I want to hear, I want to hear, I want to hear. I heard during that time. I received email after email saying, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What is our faith community going to do? So people were angry and ready for the change and to do something to address this. This is true here in Newburyport, as I said, in our congregation and in the country. As Julie referenced, on a very short notice of less than 24 hours, more than 60 people gathered on this Zoom conversation, a conversation where we didn't have the answers, we didn't have a formal agenda, the board didn't approve it, right? We responded. We got together on that call and we all struggled together to talk about how we felt, and what we might do. Out of that call emerged this core team. You've met several members today, and many, many others who are engaged in this work and who've organized ways and helping us do our part to end systemic racism. So we are organized in ways and engaged in this work within ourselves, illuminating our own biases, our own false beliefs and understandings about race, history. We're organized looking at ways that among ourselves, within our congregation, how are we perpetuating this? How are we saying that because we're a white, predominantly white, congregation, fearful of making mistakes, that there's nothing we can do of real importance? And we're organized in looking beyond our congregation, as is approved in our ends and our commitment to work in partnership with others in the community, the larger community, the community of the world that's committed to this work of anti-racism. Our Black Lives Matter sign was hung on the outside of church. We created yard signs like are on the cover of the order of service and that you still see around. Perhaps one of the most meaningful things for me was we created the Hate Has No Port Here video. We did this in response to a racist act that was done against a teenager last summer. And a small group of us got together, committed to doing something positive and yet real and proactive. The video engaged community leaders throughout Newburyport who participated in creating this message that racism will not be tolerated here, that hate has no port here. It has been shared widely and viewed over 1,800 times, and yet still, every time I watch it, I'm inspired, I'm re-energized, and I invite all of you to watch it again and share it widely. It was powerful to create this video with others in our beloved congregation and to put our religious values in action into practice. I want to share one particularly meaningful thing that happened for me. So this video, as I said, was created in response to this indescribable act that happened last summer when a teenager, Peter, offered a donut hole. He and his friends were walking around Market Square, and I have it in my mind that they were happy. It was just a good day, and they had some extra donuts, and they were offering them to people. And a white man responded with horrific, racist, hate-filled words that I won't repeat. He was treated with such hatred. So this video was made for him and all others, as we know there are many others who visit our community or live in our community, or perhaps were raised and returned to our community even to visit family and experience this kind of racism that we want to say, not here, not here. Peter gave a thumbs up to our video. You can look on YouTube and see he gave it a thumbs up positive sign, and he wrote this: I love this. TYSM. Thank you so much. To say we can't do anything is untrue. What effect will that have on Peter's life? I don't know. But I know it's certainly much more likely to be positive than if nothing was done. TYSM. Thank you so much. So the board is hoping that we as a congregation will vote next year, so a whole nother year away, on our commitment to being an anti-racist congregation, including what does that mean? What does it mean to say that? We don't want to just bring it forward and have everyone vote without even understanding what they're voting on, or voting no because we haven't together figured out what it means. However, similarly to our commitment to climate justice, this is part of our spirituality, our Unitarian Universalist principles, and our faith. So there will be various conversations and ways you can engage in that conversation all throughout the next church year. One of them is this Living the Pledge that was referenced program. It's based on the Birmingham, Alabama pledge to end racism and created in Richmond, Virginia by a dear friend and fellow colleague. It's used by UU congregations across the country as a way to educate folks on terminology and concepts and history, but really to create a common starting point for all of us. And it is not a workshop, a one-time workshop that we then check off. It is the beginning of a commitment to a lifetime of undoing racism. You can find out more about that in your order of service. And if you're interested in being trained as a facilitator, so we can have as many people in the congregation participate next year as possible, please let anyone you've heard from today know. Julie, Susan, Sue, Eileen, Tina, Vern. I just want to close for a moment by sharing, and there's so much I could say. My own journey of being an anti-racist, you've heard about it a few times, but it has had a number of different phases, including times of being overwhelmed and fearful, resistant and angry, guilt-filled and inadequate, ashamed and tired of doing the work, feeling disempowered and like it doesn't matter, or I'm not good enough. Look at those other UU ministers. Look what they know. Those were all excuses. All excuses. This work has helped me become a more whole person. I am more spiritual, more deeply committed to my own spiritual practices, my own theology, my own work and religious connection. The things I feared it didn't fit in with or it would take me away from, it's drawn me deeper into them. I believe this will make us and our congregation stronger and grow in depth, vitality, and meaning, purpose, connection, spirituality, faith. It's not going to dictate or take over every worship service. It's not a lecture series. This is about the work of our soul. We will change, but it will be for the good. We will make mistakes, but not because we're silent or not trying. Those are very different mistakes. I bless our work. I bless our work as a congregation and each and every one of you as we make this journey together toward wholeness within ourselves, among ourselves, and beyond ourselves. Amen.
This is the time in our service when offerings will be gratefully received. The generosity of our community is an essential ministry that supports the work of our church to live out our values, mission, and ends, both in Newburyport and beyond. Each week, 50% of the Sunday offerings not designated as pledges goes to a local community partner engaged in important efforts to transform our region. Half of this month's unpledged cash collection will go to the Pennies for Poverty, which for over 20 years has worked to reduce poverty and its impact on individuals and families in our area. It was founded with the belief that if everyone in the community does a little to help those in need, we can make a difference. There is no paid staff or related expenses. All donations go to our neighbors that need help. In order to make a contribution to the weekly offering, you can use the link that is posted in the chat now. You can also text the contribution by sending the word "Give FRSUU" to the number 73256. And of course, you can always mail a check to the church as well. Contributions from the weekly offerings are down significantly this year due to our online worship format. So your generosity is especially appreciated this time. Today is our last Giving Sunday. If you have not pledged yet, I hope that you do so today. With our futures looking safer and brighter every day, with the possibility of getting back together in person next church year, we need to make sure our beloved community is well cared for so that it is ready to do the work of our shared spirituality, learning, love, and growth. With the current revenue shortfall due to COVID, the only way I know to do this is to be as bold as you can with your pledge. Susan and I were. If you're ready to make your pledge, you can fill out the pledge card that was mailed to you, or you can fill it out online form on our website, which is now posted in the chat. Thank you so much.
Would you harbor me? Would I harbor you? Would you harbor me? Would I harbor you? Would you harbor a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew, a heretic, convict, or spy? Would you harbor a runaway woman or child, a poet, a prophet, a king? Would you harbor an exile or a refugee, or a person living with AIDS? Would you harbor a Tom and a Garrett, a truth, a fugitive, or a sick? Would you harbor a Haitian, Korean, or Czech, a lesbian, transvestite, or gay? Would you harbor a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew, a heretic, convict, or spy? Would you harbor a runaway woman or child, a poet, a prophet, a king? Would you harbor an exile or a refugee, or a person living with AIDS? Would you harbor a Tom and a Garrett, a truth, a fugitive, or a slave? Would you harbor a Haitian, Korean, or Czech, a lesbian, transvestite, or gay? Would you harbor me? Would I harbor you?
Please join now in our closing hymn, Come and Go With Me, followed by our unison benediction. May the love which overcomes all differences, which heals all wounds, which puts to flight all fears, which reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us now and always. I hope to see some of you at noon outside of the sanctuary, dropping off your pledge or just saying hi. My friends, as we go from here today, we go again inspired and infused with the power and the love and the forgiveness and the healing of this, our beloved community. May we draw on that strength. May we use that strength. May we benefit from that strength. May we turn and return the strength, the love, and the commitment, so that when anyone needs it, it is there. Go in peace, my friends, and return again in great joy. Amen and blessed be.